Hi everybody, welcome to the dungeon. My name is Robin and today is Lampworking 101.64. We are finally going to do the Implosion Bead. I'm really happy about this. I have worked on this for months and months, and just recently I've been working on it a little bit more. Last weekend all I made were implosions. And of course, with repetition comes understanding. I have finally figured out a way that works for me. And I hope that this technique, the way I do it, works for you too. All right, without further ado, let's get right into this bead. I hope you're all doing safe and well, and we'll see you next time in the dungeon. All right, we're gonna jump right into this with making the disc. And things are a little different when you're making an implosion bead from when you are making an implosion marble or any kind of implosion that does not have the mandrel to deal with, because I think the hardest thing about this is dealing with the mandrel, the mandrel there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build this bead up by making 4 or 5 wraps. I want to maintain a nice thin disc, and it's not perfect, it's a little sloppy, but do what you can do, and then use a marble or a mini masher just to flatten that disc down really nice. And it's not, like I said, it's not a perfectly flat and smooth on the facing side or either side, but I kind of have learned how to work around that. So before we add the pattern, we're going to make this disc much bigger, because the bigger the disc, the bigger the bead is going to be. However, I can only get so big on my disc without things starting to break and crack. So I'm going to put a little bit more on here. The wider you make the disc, the wider it gets, the more glass you have to have hot off the rod to get around that disc. And then at this point, this is kind of where things differ for me. I found that it was a lot easier to work on a slightly concave surface than just a flat surface. So I made sure that my disc was kind of bending backwards a little bit. And yes, I did turn the mandrel around so I could work on this side. And what I'm doing is just starting my pattern, adding the first row of dots as close to the center as I can get. I ended up putting them around that little space where the first and second wraps meet each other. And in between your row of dots, you will heat the front and the back of your disc every time, just to maintain the heat in it. That's really important. So you can really take your time adding your dots and getting a whole bunch of dots on there, as long as you maintain the heat in the whole disc, or it'll crack. So I am just adding, sometimes I'll add a whole round of dots, and sometimes I'll just do like maybe a half of the row and then heat the disc up and then continue from there. You're not looking to melt anything down just yet. You're just looking to maintain the heat. And the stringer that I'm using, all the stringers that I used for these beads are two-tone stringers. This one is red and pink, and it looks really great. I didn't have to, I'm not worried about making it look like a flower or anything using different colors. I just thought that this would be a really nice way to present this bead. So I'm getting closer to the edge, and that means I'm heating the disc. I'm stopping to heat the disc a little bit more often. And I do want to try to get those dots as close to the edge of the disc as I can get. I could have added a few more, but I think I probably started getting a little nervous and said, let's just continue. All right, so once we have the dots, this is what I have here. You can see that it is not a completely smooth face to this at all, even though that would be ideal. All right, so here's the trick that I use. I'm gonna use my 1-inch marble molds on the back side, so I have a really nice flat surface to work this bead on. What I'm trying to do here is just heat up all of the dots and push them in. I just want them melted in as much as possible. I'm going to say it again, but idealistically, you want all your dots melted in and a completely smooth surface before you do the implosion, but that's just not how it worked out for me. So I had to work around that, and this is what I came up with. So now I am going to be heating from the edge to the very center. If you notice, when people make any kind of implosions that are not on a mandrel, everything goes right to the center. And that's exactly what we're doing here, except we have this mandrel to deal with in the center. So I think that throws a lot of people off. But all I'm doing is just maintaining a nice, kind of trying to maintain a straight back and get all my heat in the front. Just trying to get everything as melted down as possible before the disc actually melts down. All right, so you'll notice here the disc starts to kind of come forward now to an area that we want to happen. And I am still maintaining all the heat in the center, on the edge, and in the middle. I want everything to melt kind of at the same time. And I start to angle my bead down slightly so I get kind of a cup forming. And then I will go and flatten it out before that can melt too far out, if you know what I mean. And then I'll go back and start to heat everything up again. Nice and slow, take your time. The disc does kind of get a little funky here and there, but just do your best to maintain a good balance on your bead and keep it round. Things do get a little out of control for me because the center gets really hot and the glass that's touching that mandrel just starts to move the whole thing around, but I'm still trying to maintain a small cup in the center and then trying to push everything back into a disc. So it's being pulled into the middle and then you're pushing it back out. And once that cup in the center, that indentation in the center gets really small, then it's just a matter of maintaining that really hot heat into the center of the mandrel and getting everything to just pull right down as best you can to where the glass then will touch the mandrel on the other side. But you're also keeping it, you know, a short, not a really wide bead. Here, let's do it a couple more times just so you can see. We're gonna heat the disc up on the facing side, and then I will start to angle it just slightly so the outer edge starts to pull in. However, I'm still heating up the middle. That's really important here. My torch is a big bushy flame, and I'm just trying to heat this whole thing up but not stretch it out too far. And that's why you have to keep pressing it in and pressing it in. But after a while of heating the disc and pressing it in, that little tiny cup in the center will just completely melt onto itself, nice and smooth. And that's what you want to see. Be careful right here. You don't want to get any bubbles in there. You don't want the disc to collapse before what's in the middle of it collapses. I hope this makes sense, you guys. If it doesn't, let me know. If the bead is a little long and pulls out on the edge, just heat up the other side of it when you're done and just round it out a little bit. That looks great. All right, one more time. Heating up the front and the back of the disc. Because the whole thing is that you want everything to melt down at once, but you really want the edge to curl in first. So I'm heating, pushing the dots in, starting out with it concave one way and then pulling it in to where it's nice and straight, a straight, even disc. Sure doesn't look very even there, but it works, it works. Okay, so now things are getting a lot more melted on the whole facing side, and then you're gonna start to gently angle it to where the edges start to curl in. Heating everything up here, angling it down a little bit, and then flattening it out, and then heating it up, angling it down, and I'm heating, you know, the most important area is the center. I want everything to go to the center, so that's where my heat is. This bead got a little out of control there, but I did maintain balance. And again, this is a good little section here where you can see that tiny cup in the center and how everything's pulling towards it. And then there's a point where it will just finally collapse and the whole bit of glass will be on the mandrel again. And that's when you can heat that bottom and then go back and heat that top part, even things out a little bit. And there we have our implosion. I hope you guys like this. If something doesn't make sense to you, please let me know in the comments. This is not an easy bead to explain, but I hope I did it service. And thanks so much for watching. We'll see you guys next time.